No matter if points are gained or points are lost, there will be much to discuss. For analysis regarding tonight's Winnipeg Jets game, here are Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mandel. The Illegal Curve post-game show starts now.
From first place in the Western Conference in mid-February to the first team eliminated from the Stanley Cup playoffs at the end of April, the Winnipeg Jets season has come to an end. So is Ginsburg. I don't know, where did he go? Good evening, Winnipeg. Good evening, Manitoba. And for all those joining us this morning now as the clock strikes midnight, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve post-game show. That's an unhealthy swig of liquor that Mr. Ginsburg just took, so you know you're in for a doozy of an Illegal Curve post-game show.
Now I'm ready to go.
Alongside Dave Minuk, alongside Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mandel, here to discuss the end of the Winnipeg Jets season as they go into Vegas and no-show a critical must-win Game 5, resulting in the end of the regular season. They lose 4-1 tonight. They lose the series 4-1. The Winnipeg Jets, as we know it, I strongly suspect, are going to go through an off season of upheaval. Gentlemen, good to see you both on this Friday morning. Ezra's already drinking heavily, so Dave, I hope you're the sober of the two.
I have to say sober. I don't have a choice, Drew, because see that banner right there? That's the Manitoba Moose one that we will have to turn our focus to, and of course become a Moose show starting tomorrow. And with Game 1 between the Moose and the Admirals, it is rather fitting. So I got to keep my focus ready to go here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, Illegal Curve Postgame Show, and of course a little site called illegalcurve.com.
Very good. Mr. Ginsburg, good morning to you. How are things in your world?
Good morning. Really, it's technically good morning, but let's call it good evening. But
okay,
yeah, I mean the season's over here. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Okay, that's good analysis already there. Look, I mean, the Jets were certainly up against it, down 3-1 entering tonight's Game 5. You knew that it was going to be a very difficult hill to climb for them to come all the way back in this series. I don't think anyone really expected them to come back from down 3-1 with the litany of injuries that they've currently got with, of course, Mark Scheifele and Josh Morrissey being out of the lineup, Nikolai Ehlers returning to the lineup for today's game. The first playoff action he's had comes in Game 5 after the Ryan Hartman hit at the end of the regular season. But the manner in which the Jets went out, the lack of fight, the lack of intestinal fortitude. I mean, you have to, of course, be reminded of 2018-19, that game in St. Louis, the Game 6 there where the Jets put up 6 shots after 40 minutes. It wasn't dissimilar to that in tonight's game, giving up a goal within the first minute of the first period, giving up a goal within the first minute of the second period, never mind the other 2 goals that they gave up in the second period to make it 4-0 after 40 minutes. But what has to be just the most disheartening is the lack of fight, the lack of response, just the fact that the team wasn't ready to play when the game began. Just, I think, to me, spells the end of this iteration of the Winnipeg Jets. If this has been the Winnipeg Jets 2.0, and maybe there's already been the Winnipeg Jets 2.0.1, well, I think we're about to see the Winnipeg Jets 2.0.2 after this offseason.
Drew, what are you talking about right now? The Jets? I know what you're saying here. Hi. It's been a great show so far. The Jets have injuries. The Golden Knights also had some injuries. Braden McNabb and Shea Theodore, last time I checked, are top 4 defensemen.
They are.
So the injuries is bullshit if you're going to use the injuries as the main reason why the Jets lost this series here. Look, the Jets only turned it up in the third period, right? Like the Jets were the dominant team in the third period, but they got Ehlers back. And even though Ehlers hadn't played in, 2 weeks? I guess April 11th, I believe, was the Minnesota Wild game where Ryan Hartman took him out of the game, right? So the Golden Knights seemed to get it done, without 2 top 4 defensemen in McNabb and Theodore, right? So, I mean, the Golden Knights are just a better team. And yes, if the Jets had Josh Morrissey and Nikolai Ehlers and Cole Perfetti and Mark Scheifele for the whole series, I guess. So if you're talking about 5 games, I think the series would have gone longer, by the way. But I think that the Jets would have given, pardon the pun, but they would have given the Golden Knights a better run for their money. But when you're missing those players and, you're depending on, guys like Kevin Stenlund and Carson Kuhlman and Mason Appleton to give you, more offense, you're in trouble. Look, the Jets they had no answer for Mark Stone, Chandler Stevenson, William Karlsson. They had no response for the aggressive Golden Knights forecheck. I mean, look at a lot of the goals tonight were self-inflicted, right? And it's admirable that you're able to get a goal in the third period and it looked like Dubois made it a 2-goal game, and then maybe it would have been a little bit more interesting. But I agree with you, Drew. I think going into this game, I think the best that you can really do is hope that you get a game 6 back in Winnipeg. And we know how much the Jets have struggled at home, right? They've lost 7 in a row. And I made the mistake last show. A lot of people pointed it out. They did win 2 games in 2021. I was referring to fans in the stands. They have lost 7 games in a row, right? So just because the Jets force a game 6 doesn't mean that they're going to win the series.
No.
Obviously means that, fans would get one more whiteout. But look,
even if the Jets, sorry, as if for interrupting, but look, even if the Jets lose this game, but they showed the same level of fight that they showed in games 3 and in games 4, then I think people would be accepting of that. Because yes, the lineup is depleted. I agree with you that Vegas, is without 2 of their top 4 defensemen in tonight's game in Braden McNabb and Shea Theodore. It's just the manner in which they lose. And as far as I'm concerned, anything that happened in the third period of today's game is irrelevant. I mean, I see you nodding your head there, Dave M. You can't go down 4-0.
It's 100% irrelevant.
Yeah, you can't go down 4-0 in a must-win game and then take some sort of solace in the fact that you didn't give up an empty net goal for the 8 minutes that you had Connor Hellebuck on the bench, in the latter half of the third period. I saw you tweeting about it, Dave. I mean, you may have. I don't even know if you named him by name, but you said if you want to get paid $10 million. You need to show up in this game. And that's clearly a reference to Pierre-Luc Dubois, who was just absolutely invisible when it mattered for the Winnipeg Jets in this game. And by and large, in all the games since game 1, when he was so prevalent in the Jets' only victory in this series.
Like, I mean, the fact of the matter is that these guys, we don't create these narratives. It's not like I said one day, hey, I'm going to put this guy into this category. And then I tried to create, make sure that I could prove my narrative after the fact by, amending things. I mean, Mark Scheifele is the one who said, I want to be one of the top players in the same breath of Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews. We didn't force him to say that. Those are his words, and I'm not saying that Pierre-Luc Dubois said he's worth $10 million, but the fact of the matter is that these guys, we know this is what they're thinking, right? Oftentimes. And so all I said was, if you want to be a guy who is worth that kind of money, then you have to show up, and you have to show up when your team needs you, because they're down, a guy who scored 42 goals in the regular season and a defenseman who had 75 points in the regular season. And, with all due respect to Neil Pionk, who tried to step up for Josh Morrissey, he is not Josh Morrissey. And we saw it in the series. If you remember, Josh Morrissey going down, similar to when Dylan DeMello went down against Montreal, and the Jets just didn't have the answer really in that series. Obviously, they lost Mark Scheifele due to suspension. Coincidentally, no Scheifele and no defenseman, one of the top defensemen, and similar things are transpiring. But to me, you needed Pierre-Luc Dubois. I mean, you wanted to be the big dog. Well, if you want to be a big dog, as he's 100% right, you don't blame Kevin Stenlund. You don't blame Carson Kuhlman. No. You don't blame any of these guys. Although, hey, Mikey Eyssimont scored a pretty important goal for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I guess they figured out a way to use him, and assist, including the assist on the game-winning goal.
I'm shocked the Leafs lost tonight.
but anyways, let's stick to Jets talk, because we got everybody here.
You're absolutely right with your point there, Dave, and that's going to lead into a discussion today on this post-game show, and again on Saturday morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, about the roster construction and the roster mismanagement. Because look, Kevin Cheveldayoff is now squarely, in any other market, his job would be in question.
Look at Pittsburgh, Drew. Just to illustrate your point, I agree with you. Look at Pittsburgh, right? How quickly did Mario Lemieux and Penn's ownership get rid of Ron Hextall and get rid of Brian Burke and who was the other guy? Pryor, right?
The entire front office.
They fired them the day after the season ended, right? Like, so to your point, and you look at some other franchises that have gone through, several regimes over the last decade. The Jets obviously have only had one general manager, Jets, as you were talking about with Jets 2.0, 2.01, 02. There hasn't been a 0.01 or 02 because we're still on Kevin Cheveldayoff 1.0, right? So I think those questions are going to come up. This was a year, in which you had to do better than just squeak into the playoffs and then get knocked out in the first round in 5 games because of the fact that you've got Scheifele and Wheeler and Hellebuck and Dubois and their contracts expiring, right? So I think there's absolutely going to be those questions, Drew, about how this roster was constructed and how adding Nino Niederreiter and Vladislav Nemestikov was nice towards the end of the season.
Right.
But once you get into the playoffs, I mean, all due respect to guys like Niederreiter and Nemestikov, you can't compare those guys to Chandler Stevenson and Mark Stone and William Karlsson.
And look, and I've been saying this for years now, and you can go back if you want to go find the old TSN 1290 pregame show, when I spoke about Chandler Stevenson. They got him for a 5th round pick.
What a steal.
Look at the impact that he's had. Vegas had traded to the Washington Capitals a 5th round pick.
And that's after Washington beat Vegas in the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, 2019.
Right.
Yeah.
Where are the instances of the Jets showing foresight when it comes to player evaluation? When it comes to finding a player, a hidden gem? Well, they found one in Mikey Eyssimont, and they let him go for nothing. When Tampa Bay is acquiring a guy that you let go for nothing, you've done something wrong. You can generally just take that to the bank. Look at, Johnny Kovacevic. Look at the season he had in Montreal this year. And then you look at the Jets back end towards the end of the season. I mean, I
actually thought Kyle Capobianco was really good tonight.
I didn't have a problem with Kyle Capobianco. There's no question, he was perfectly fine. But look, if, and anytime he played for the Jets this year, he was perfectly fine. But it's just, again, mismanagement of an asset, because there's no way that if you put Capobianco on waivers that, he's going to end up being a regular in the Montreal Canadiens lineup and look like a stalwart there for 82 games or however many games Kovacevic played. But
I think he played about 60. I think he ended up playing 65.
Okay, well, a very significant
he
number.
He wouldn't have come close to that with the Jets.
Of course. Well, I know, but I mean, it's just there's where
Drew, this is the same organization that let guys play their 82nd game.
Yeah.
Instead of getting guys like Leon Gavanke, who is a 2017 5th rounder, who scored 20 goals, set the all-time Moose record for goals by a defenseman, and you could have gone him into a game. It was a meaningless game for the Jets. I'm sorry. Could have given those guys like a night off, and instead you played them. Well, I'm glad you got them in. But again, like it creates like ill will. Like, here's a guy who you could have said, okay, we're going to throw you a bone. We're going to give you your first NHL game. They do this kind of stupid shit all the time. It makes no sense.
The Eric Comrie mismanagement from
Eric Comrie. Well, he was going to get paid too much money. Okay, sure. Yeah, like David Rittich was really the answer. You know who would have looked good as a backup right now? Laurent Brossoit.
Well, look,
and for the record, I was on Eric. I mean, I would have been fine with Eric Comrie staying, obviously, as everyone here knows. So I'm not. I'm just saying that. Yeah, I mean, the Eric Comrie thing was ridiculous. It didn't make
sense when it happened. It still didn't make sense a year later.
None.
I mean,
absolutely none.
And that's just it. I mean, and
Drew, just to quickly finish though. Yep. I mean, David Rittich wasn't good down the stretch, right?
Right.
Think about all those games that the Jets lost. Think about the Jets' different position. If the Jets again have the ability to rest guys, have the ability to cruise into the playoffs, and instead try and like force their way in. And look, Connor Hellebuck wasn't great either. Played him 13 straight games. He got a day off at the last. He got a day off for game 82. Mm-hmm. It was poorly managed from the beginning. I mean, look,
and I don't think.
Let's be realistic. It all was going downhill. It was all going downhill after when Drew called the Jets elite. Once Drew called the Jets elite, It was over.
Yeah,
It's true. It's
that
all
was the
my
kiss
fault.
of death. Yeah,
Like, and I keep saying
Drew's
shutout.
fault.
I kept saying shutout all the time as well, and you know the power
True.
that I have. It's just, and you know, it all feeds one into the other. You have the organization, you know, trying to sell season tickets by and getting people to part with their hard-earned money, and you're trying to you. What are you selling? Are you selling a vision? Because if there's a vision, articulate it. You know, where is the vision for this team moving forward? What is this team moving forward?
I think they're going to run it back, Drew.
Honestly, would it surprise you? Would it surprise you? I think you're being tongue-in-cheek, as
I think I am being tongue-in-cheek, but I think this year it would surprise me just because I don't think you can hang on to all of these guys that have expiring contracts. I just don't think you can. Like I know some people want every, like the old clean house, right? There's some people that want Scheifele to be traded, Dubois to be traded, even Hellebuck, who you could get a huge return on, right? But I don't think that all these guys are going to be traded, but I don't think it's going to be the same as last year. I just don't think you can. Like, could it happen? Of course it could happen, right, Drew? I just don't think it'll happen because this year, in a way, was more disappointing than last year, considering that you were first place in the Central Division. And then you just squeaked into the playoffs, right? Like, you're fighting off the Nashville Predators, who were big-time sellers at the trade deadline. The Predators almost got the second wild card spot with a group of players. Half of their team was the Milwaukee Admirals, right? So to me, this season was even more disappointing than last year when they missed the playoffs entirely. So, yeah, I do think there are going to be significant changes, but there's no way I can tell you, you know, how big those changes are going to be, because we know how loyal Mark Chipman is to Kevin Cheveldayoff. The Jets, as we mentioned earlier, have only had one general manager since coming over from Atlanta, right? So we'll have to wait and see. And we're going to have lots of time to talk about this on the Saturday show, by the way, because the Jets have already, you know, secured their tee times for this weekend, I believe. So, yeah, I mean, look at the roster clearly, you know, it wasn't deep enough to, you know, overcome the injuries to Josh Morrissey and Nikolai Ehlers, right? Like, even with Ehlers coming back, I told Dave, like, as we're watching the game here at his place, like, I'm like, how much can you expect out of Nick Ehlers not having played for 2 weeks, coming in game 5? Like, I just, you know, I thought he was okay, but I just don't think you can expect him to be a difference maker in this game.
No, this was a game, you know, where Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor needed to be the best players for the Winnipeg Jets. You know, you're right, Ezzy.
They need to be the best player, Drew. They need to be the best players on the ice, period.
Right, the best players on the ice. Yes, they needed to be the
in
best
addition
players
to
on the
Hellebuck,
ice.
obviously, yeah.
And Hellebuck as well. You know, so, I mean, you know, yes. But, you know, Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor needed to carry this team because you're right, Ezzy. Nikolai Ehlers, you know, coming back into the lineup, having not played in a couple of weeks, and who knows exactly how healthy he is. He's probably not anywhere near 100%. Not that many of these guys are. They're all banged up. But so are the Golden Knights, for the record. So every team, we're so banged up. Every team is so banged up after this many games. But, the Jets' best players needed to be the best players, and they weren't. And Pierre-Luc Dubois, with the exception of game 1, had a lousy series. And Kyle Connor got worse as the series went on, in my estimation, and got less engaged in the series as the series went on. There are problems beyond just the fact that you lost in 5 games in the first round. Everything about this team right now, you know, there's some teams where you lose in 5 games in the first round, well, you can still say your trajectory is pointing upwards. Mm-hmm. This Jets team has had their trajectory pointing downwards for so many years in a row now that you have to come to grips with what they are and rectify that accordingly. It doesn't, it's just one of those things. You might not like to do it, but you have to do it, and you have to be ruthless about doing so.
Well, and just quickly, I mean, we will eventually get into the game recap, but I mean, as he's right, this does feel a bit like a Saturday show, but hey, you know, it's after midnight and we got almost 350 of you here in the chat. So the chat's alive. Folks are smashing that like button. But I mean, look, ultimately, I think what it comes down to is what Jets fans have to hope for is a retool and not a rebuild. And, you know, maybe a Rangers style thing where you're less likely to break it all down. And again, it's going to take some crafting. But that's why you get paid.
They better get a first overall pick and a second overall pick, Dave, because I don't know if that happens.
And sign Artemi Panarin.
I was going to say, and yeah, exactly. I mean, without Alexi Lafreniere and Capo Caco, I don't know if that Rangers will. let's be honest, my Devils are taking care of them in the first round.
I was going to say right now they're not looking so good as he anyways.
Yeah.
But look, I'm not. Look, I'm just saying that the Rangers and obviously they had Shesterkin, who's not looked too shabby, but I think that folks are being discounted by when you say that they won't stand for a rebuild. And I think like I've got the comment highlighted right now. I think ultimately like Jets fans need to see a give a shit factor. And I'm not saying these guys don't care. Like obviously guys care and guys want to win, but at the same time, like you can see it in the type of game they're playing. And look, Chandler Stevenson, big boy from Saskatoon, Brett Howden from Oakbank, Mark Stone, these guys, and I'm not just saying guys from the Prairies are the reason you win. Doesn't hurt, but
it's almost like their GM is from the Prairies as well.
Yes, exactly. But
was the Jets GM.
Yeah, so is the entirety of everyone in the Golden Knights organization, from their color guy to their to the lawman,
radio color guy.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways, I just think that there's a thought process that this organization needs to go through in terms of, like you guys said, evaluating what they have and being realistic about this right now, and saying, like, again, the fan base isn't stupid. Like people sit in the chat and they're and again. The chat, obviously people are passionate. People have their positions, and some people are wanting more Canadians, and some people say they want more skill, and whatever it is, whatever your passion is, people have it for this team, which is good. But I mean, at the same time, at the end of the day, these guys need to be honest with themselves and say, look, we've given this core the shot they wanted. I mean, you've given Kevin Cheveldayoff the shot he asked. You said last year was an aberration. You said that this year was going to be better. And sure, losing Josh Morrissey after the year he had was absolutely disheartening and changes the trajectory of this series. And losing Mark Scheifele, who scored 42 goals for you, the career high for him, absolutely has an impact on this series. And not having Nikolai Ehlers for 4 games absolutely has an impact on this series. But at the end of the day, that's just the way it is. And so what are you going to do? Oh, well, you know what? We had these extenuating circumstances for the playoffs, but really we were okay for the regular season. So therefore, we're going to run it. Like, no one is going to buy that.
No one's going to buy that. Look at a team like Carolina, right? Max Pacioretty's missed almost the whole season. Andrei Svechnikov has been out will be out for the entire playoffs. They're up 3-2 on the New York Islanders. And I realize the Islanders have made it interesting, but I'm just saying Boston with Patrice Bergeron, like, newsflash, other teams also get injuries. You know what I mean? So, like, don't get me wrong. If Morrissey's healthy for the whole series, if Ehlers is healthy for the whole series, if Scheifele's healthy for the whole series, I do think this series does go to 6 or 7 games, and then we could have the debate, whether, with the way the Jets were playing, if they could beat the Golden Knights, Dave. But you're 100% right. The roster was flawed. It's a good team. I still think the Jets are a playoff team. Like we talked about it. Well, Dave and I picked the Jets. Drew picked the Golden Knights. So obviously Drew's the genius of the group.
Oh boy.
But, I think they're much better than a 95-point team. And they were on pace to be like a 105 to 107-point team back in January. But we know what happened. They were below 500 for the last 3 months of the season. So it's obviously a super disappointing finish to the season. But yeah, if most Jets fans, I think, want and expect some big changes this offseason.
They want to be treated with respect about where this team is going. And it ties into the season ticket campaign. If you're asking me to part with my hard-earned money, I want to know what I'm buying. Am I buying the status quo? Well, I've seen the status quo. I don't want to pay full price for that. Am I buying hope? Am I buying the future? Am I buying something that's going to leave me excited? Well, then maybe I'm willing to do that. It's about treating the fan base with respect and giving them the vision, understanding what the vision is for this team. I'm not certain what the identity of this Jets team is. And that's been the question I've had, not just for this year, not just for last year, but for a number of years now. What is the identity of this Winnipeg Jets team? Where is the...
Well, it changes from game to game. That's the major issue, right? Like, yeah. And we saw it even in this series, right? Like, Dave's right. The first game in Vegas, the Jets dominated the Golden Knights. And then
First 20
everybody's saying,
minutes. Yeah.
people were even saying, and I'm not joking when I say this, people were actually saying that the Jets might sweep the Golden Knights or beat the Golden Knights in 5.
That's because Drew is calling them elite, Ezzy.
Well, exactly. Drew had to use that word again, but no, I mean, so obviously the Jets have that ability in them to play like that, and that was without Nikolai Ehlers. So yes, you had Josh Morrissey and Mark Scheifele, but if you play that system from game to game, you don't need Josh Morrissey in the lineup. You don't need Mark Scheifele in the lineup. I mean, look at the Golden Knights. The Golden Knights were a 111-point team with 5 different goalies. They
overcame adversity.
They overcame adversity, and the Jets overcame adversity early in the season when they had all of those injuries, right? Nick Ehlers and Mason Appleton, and it goes on and on and on. So the Jets were getting by with guys like Mikey Esimont and Axel Jonsson-Fjallby, Carson Kuhlman, guys like that. But you're right, Drew. I mean, the identity. I mean, we know that the Jets have been built on speed and skill. We know that. The problem is their defense isn't good enough to play certain teams that way. And when you're not playing the run and gun back and forth Edmonton Oilers style of hockey, and then you throw in the fact that their power play struggled big time this year. I mean, the Jets had to switch the way they were playing. And yes, you have to adjust and adapt your game dependent on who you were playing. But you look at this series, I mean, the Jets are able, certain players on the Jets at least, like guys like Adam Lowry and Brendan Dillon, there's certain players that can play that rough and tumble. And that's what the Golden Knights did in the series, right? Like the Golden Knights, it wasn't look at William Carrier, that was his first game. And who did they take out? They took out a guy with 98, 99 games of playoff experience in Phil Kessel. Yeah. And yes, Kessel hasn't been one of the better Golden Knights. He had a couple assists and he wasn't bad. So that says a lot that you're able to take out Phil Kessel, put in William Carrier, and Carrier was laying the body on Neil
noticeable
Pionk.
Immediately.
He was noticeable. He's a fourth line guy, right? So
that shows you the difference in that shows you the difference in the depth and in the quality of the depth. The Jets are trying to sell, guys who aren't NHL players.
But Drew, go. Sorry, not to cut you off, and I know we usually save the coaches' comments for the end of the show.
I want to go right there. That's what I want
to go there. Come on. Okay, well, then you go there, but let me just set you up.
Okay.
Let me set you up. I'll give you the assist. Okay. So you're talking about the role players, but really, and again, what my focus is.
As long as Drew doesn't role play, I think Dave will be okay.
Especially after midnight, Ezzy. But look, the truth is, this is Pierre-Luc Dubois, Kyle Connor, Blake Wheeler, your big dogs. I'm not saying Blake Wheeler is whatever, but the point is those are the guys that you needed to step up.
Right.
And now, Drew, how about it?
Rick Bowness and his media availability after the game, quote, "I'm so disappointed and disgusted right now. There was no pushback. The same crap that we saw back in February." That's the Winnipeg Jets head coach.
Is that a guy that's going to be back next year?
I think that's a guy who's not coming back if the same roster is back. That's to me that him saying that I'm done with this roster. That's what it's telling me, is that I'm done trying to get something out of this roster. I've tried all year. I gave it my best shot. They won't respect me. They won't listen to anyone else. That's what I'm hearing from that comment, is that that's not a guy who wants any interest in coming back to coach this team if this team remains in constructed in the same manner.
And he's not wrong. And Drew mentioned it, right? Like, you get scored on early, like really early in the game. A minute into the game, you're scored on. Less than a minute, 30 seconds, 50 seconds, whatever.
First shot of the game.
And it's not just that. The Jets only had a couple of shots midway through the first 8 to 10 minutes was dominated by the Golden Knights. The Jets had nothing going. And then towards the second half of the first period, the Jets started to come along. But you're already now climbing up the hill, right? Like, you're already up against it. And the Jets have had a lot of trouble early on in periods. And then what do the Golden Knights do? They score again early in the second. Mark Stone, who's obviously been a Jets killer in this series, scores early in the second period. And the game's essentially over when it's 2-0. Yes, the third and fourth goals that put the game out of reach, but you got the feeling when Mark Stone scored early in the second that the third and fourth goals were coming because the Golden Knights were generating all the offense. So I'm not surprised at all to hear that from Rick Bowness. It's the same type of stuff we heard from Paul Maurice before he quit on the team.
He said, Rick Bowness said that the Vegas best players were so much better than the Jets' top players tonight. I mean, Rick Bowness didn't, there were no sacred cows here.
He didn't mince words.
He did not mince words. This is it's not going to be a traditional post-game show where we go through the Betway game recap. I don't think we need to do the goal-by-goal analysis.
Oh, no, we're going to do that as well. Come on.
Well, I'm just going to...
Drew, this is our last show. This is our last show of the 22-23 season.
I'm aware that it is, Dave.
We got to start prepping for the draft.
The Betway game recap is brought
I don't
to you
think the
by
Jets are getting
Betway,
Bedard.
one of the most trusted voices in sports betting.
Someone did text me and say, "Is it too late for the Jets to fail for Bedard?"
Yeah, a little too late, unfortunately. Betway is the most trusted voices in sports betting, both in Canada and all around the world. Betway is the sports betting app that puts you, the customer, at the forefront. With a large selection of betting options in sports, as well as strong promotions and fair odds. What are you waiting for? Head on over to Betway and bet your way. Must be 19 years or older to play. Please play responsibly. I see it's up on the screen that says Moose Season. Along those lines, stay with us throughout the post-game show. We have Moose tickets to give away for Game 1 and Game 2. Is that correct, Dave? Yes,
we
Game
do
1
indeed.
And Game 2 of the Moose playoff series against the Milwaukee Admirals. So we're going to give away some Moose tickets on tonight's post-game show. That'll be your reward for sticking with us late night here on Friday morning, 12:30 in the morning, talking about the Jets season coming to an end. And Rick Bowness now napalming the Jets' best players for their performance tonight against
Should
the
make for a
Golden
fun
Knights.
plane ride tomorrow.
What the thing is, how do you argue with him?
You don't.
How could any player stand up and say, no, I disagree with our head coach? We all just saw what we saw. Look at the teams that were down 3-1 on the road that won their game 5.
Islanders, Panthers,
Lightning.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, I missed the Lightning. Yeah.
Lightning earlier tonight against Toronto. They all go into the opposition's barn on elimination games, and they find a way to win. Boston finds a way to win again. The Panthers find a way to win.
Finding a way to win. It's finding a way to show up before the third period.
Linus Allmark finds a way to give up.
You didn't have to win. You know what's funny? Look, I think you're going to agree with me, but I'm going to make the point anyways.
Okay.
Nobody in the chat, almost 400 of you, are going to sit there and say, you needed the Jets to win this game. You wanted the Jets to win this game, but you didn't need the Jets to win this game. You needed the Jets to show up in this game. That was what you needed. And the Jets did not show up. They didn't show up in the first minute of the first period. They didn't show up in the first minute of the second period. Oh, wait, they didn't show up for lots of time in between. And so to me, that's the biggest cause for concern. This is an elimination game. In a game you absolutely had to win, you didn't even show up. Like, that's the problem. It's not about winning sometimes. Like, obviously everybody wants to win.
Yeah.
But it's not just sometimes it's about
the way you lost. It's not just the loss.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's the way you lost the game.
More from Rick Bowness. There's got to be pushback. There's got to be pride. You've got to be able to push back when things aren't going your way. And that's exactly what you're talking about, Dave. You're talking about just having the professional pride to say we're not going to get embarrassed. We might lose, but we'll be able to hold our heads up high no matter how we go out. We gave it our all. And had the Jets done that, then I think the tenor of the conversation right now would be a lot different. It wouldn't be happy. There would still be those who would be saying you need to change things, because I think that's obvious to everyone that you need to change things. But it's the way in which they lost, the way in which they didn't demonstrate what it means to be a professional. And I'm pointing at Pierre-Luc Dubois, probably primarily. That would be my primary focus right now. It would be on Pierre-Luc Dubois. Blake Wheeler, I thought
he had a pretty good series, actually.
I thought he
didn't have a great game tonight, but in games 1 through 4, he was one of the better Jets forwards.
Absolutely.
He gave everything that you could possibly give. He doesn't have any more to give at this stage.
He gave what was in it. He gave what was in him to give.
That's right. He did himself proud. If this is his final game as a member of the Winnipeg Jets, and who knows if it is or isn't, he's still got that 1 year left on the contract. He can hold his head up high because he demonstrated the requisite pride, that should come with playing in this kind of game. Pierre-Luc Dubois managed to both tank his trade value and tank what his next contract is going to be worth in a single game tonight. And keep in mind, this is a guy in Pierre-Luc Dubois who quit on the previous team before the Winnipeg Jets.
Right. There's a track record. You're absolutely right, Drew. On Saturday's show, who are we talking about that needed to step up, right? Obviously Scheifele, and then he gets injured. So tonight, Scheifele, you can't have an impact on the game when you're not playing. So you're right. It was Pierre-Luc Dubois. It was Kyle Connor. It was, Nito Niederreiter to a lesser extent. You needed more from Vladislav Nemesnikov, but I don't think anybody really expected, a ton of offense out of Nemesnikov.
No.
So Pierre-Luc Dubois, even though, he had the goal that was taken away, as you mentioned, that's in garbage time with, what was there, 3 or 4 minutes left at that point, right?
Although wouldn't that have made the game a little interesting?
His effort level. Sorry, Dave?
I was just saying, wouldn't that have made the game a little more interesting?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a 2-goal game with 3 minutes left, I don't think they necessarily tie it up, but they, based on what happened in game 3, maybe they do, right, Dave? So, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Drew, his give an SHIT factor was nowhere near.
Did you already say shit during the show?
Yeah.
You've already sworn during the show.
Yeah, you already have.
True.
So you don't have to play PG PG-13 at this point in time. You're in for a dime, you're in for a dollar on that front there, Mr. Ginsburg. I mean, it's just, and again, Rick Bowness has nothing to lose at this stage of his career by being brutally honest. What's he going to do? I mean, if he never gets another coaching job in the NHL, I'm pretty sure he's going to be comfortably retired, and he's got the respect of the entire league. So Rick Bowness doesn't have any reason to hold back. But this is on the players, and this is on management and ownership for thinking that that what happened last year was an anomaly. I mean, and for a few months it looked like it was. But when things started to careen off course in January and in February and then continued in March, of course, they were like they were stunned. They didn't know how to rectify that. And isn't that the story of this Winnipeg Jets team as of late, is that they don't have a clue how to solve a problem when it's occurring. Nobody is willing to grab the reins, be it a player or be it front office, and do something that changes things up. It's the paralysis by analysis. It's the fear, and it's the constant reactivity as opposed to being proactive that has plagued this organization for years now. And you can't have it continue this offseason. You need to make changes. And now, instead of being proactive in trying to make changes, you now are trying to trade Pierre-Luc Dubois, who's got a diminished value.
Apparently, he's going to be at the draft in Nashville with his bank. My sources are telling me that.
That's what your sources are telling you. You've got Mark Scheifele with a year left to go on his contract. And it wouldn't surprise me if the Jets tried to re-sign Mark Scheifele. I mean, 42-goal guys don't grow on trees. But at the same time, is that the answer?
If you're signing Mark Scheifele to a long-term contract, then you're not rebuilding or you're not retooling.
Right. So you're almost caught in between this rock and a hard place here when it comes to some of these players. What are you doing with Connor Hellebuyck? I mean, I don't know that a retool is an option for this team. And I know, Dave, you said retool earlier. The way I look at it, if you're trading Connor Hellebuyck, it's a complete rebuild. Now you have some pieces that you can build with, but there's no goaltender that's ready to step in to be an NHL goaltender in this Jets roster or in this Jets organization. So you're acquiring a goaltender as well in this offseason. Similar to when you went out and got Steve Mason, the number of years back. Remember when you weren't sure if Hellebuyck was ready or not? You're on mute. I can't hear you, Dave.
I said, and then didn't they have to buy him out?
They bought him out, and that's what the Yoel Armia when he went to Montreal.
Yeah.
Again, more asset mismanagement, and that's going back, multiple years now. That's going back 5 years now. After the 17-18 season, they had to buy him out in that off season, if I recall correctly. There's just, again, there needs to be a vision, there needs to be a plan, and I don't know that True North and the ownership knows what the plan is, and I certainly don't think that the current general manager is the one who's should be the one who's able to execute that plan, because it's his indecision or the indecision of the people above him that has caused this problem to begin with.
I would agree with that. And I think, Dale Sawchuk, our good buddy, is saying, like, who is the core of this team? Well, we know who the core of the team is. The question is that core going to be the same, come September? And, I mentioned it earlier, Drew, like, I think there's a very strong case to be made that the Jets should not only move Pierre-Luc Dubois, but they should also move on several players. And we know who those players are. Wheeler and Scheifele are options to move, quite frankly, right? Just based on where they are with their contracts. Now, will that happen? Trading Hellebuck is a completely different story. Like, I'm not at all in it. Like, the Jets don't get into the playoffs without Connor Hellebuck. Everybody knows that. I understand that Connor Hellebuck would the return would be huge if you traded Connor Hellebuck. But I also think without Connor Hellebuck, you're just not going to be a playoff team next year. I just don't know. Like, who? First off, what would that trade look like? I don't even know. You just don't see Vezina Trophy goalies traded that often, right? So, like, are you trading Hellebuck to get draft picks, to get prospects? Like, you would assume that they would be getting a goalie. So I'm not really on the Hellebuck, trading Hellebuck bandwagon, because I just think he's a guy you want to sign long term. I don't know if that's going to happen, because we just don't know if Hellebuck wants to sign another long-term contract with the Jets. So I'm in the camp that thinks the Jets should keep Hellebuck. When it comes to Dubois, I think absolutely he's a guy that needs to be moved. Not just because he has made it clear that he wants to go to Montreal. Look how he performed in the clutch in games 3, 4, and 5. Right? Like, I just think it's inexcusable. Like, we've talked about, he's got God-given ability. Like, he's a guy who he is built like a power forward. Like, if you went into a lab and you wanted to build a power forward, 6'2", 6'3", 220, hard shot, physical, everybody knows what Pierre-Luc Dubois brings. I just don't think he wants to be here, quite frankly. So I just don't think he's a guy that's going to be here very long. And then when it comes to Scheifele and Wheeler, I know they've been here since day one, but like, are you going to trade both of those guys? We know that Wheeler could have been traded, but they weren't willing to eat half the salary. I don't know if you can trade Wheeler, Dave, without eating half that salary. I don't know how many people want to acquire Wheeler and pay that full $8.25 million.
I think what it comes down to is, and again, I'm not saying these guys don't give a shit, but when you saw,
did someone just give us $100?
Yeah, Frosty. It's Frosty. Thank you.
Very
generous,
Frosty.
Very generous. Appreciate that.
That is.
Hold on. Just for the record, I'm getting that. I was the one who had to dish out thousands of dollars on my foundation for my River Heights house. So
fair enough.
That's going to me.
That's going right to Ezzy's foundation. But no, what I was going to say, thank you very much, Frosty. That was very kind of you. Yeah. Frosty, we appreciate it. Appreciate it. Each and every one of you guys in the chat.
Make sure it goes to a good cause.
The Ginsburg
Foundation.
No, but I mean, I think what folks want to see, and correct me, folks in the chat can correct me if I'm wrong, when they panned to Mark Stone, the look of intensity that guy I've talked to people in hockey. They and all they talk about is the way that guy brings everyone into the fight. Yep. He brings his group. Everybody is. I mean, you can't look.
Jesse Granger said it right. Jesse Granger, aka Drew's lunchmate. Granger said they're a different team. When Mark Stone is playing like Mark Stone, the Golden Knights are a different team. When Mark Stone is not in the lineup, that's what a leader is. He's the captain. That's what a leader brings. He brings the team up. He uplifts the team.
Well, and again,
with his play on the ice.
With his play on the ice, but again, like you like I said, you just have to look at his face and see that look of just absolute like will to win, and you realize like that's it. That's how you win. And I'm not saying, again, don't get me wrong, Wheeler's got a very similar sort of style. He doesn't have the abilities that he used to have back in the day when he could do that sort of thing, because he's not what he was, 2, 3, 4 years ago. But the fact of the matter is, Wheeler does have that level of intensity, and he has. But I'm just saying that. But that's why you need other younger guys to take the torch, take the mantle from a Wheeler, like a Pierre-Luc Dubois, like a Kyle Connor, and you have to have that intensity. And I'm sorry, I didn't see it. I didn't see it in the faces. I'm not saying Adam Lowry doesn't have it, but he doesn't have the same levels of ability as those guys.
And Lowry had
great playoffs.
He had 4
great
goals
playoffs
in the series. He dropped the mitts, right? Like nobody is gonna like Lowry left it all out there. And remember how good he was down the stretch for the Jets.
for sure.
Lowry, I mean, he did everything he could do in this game. You're not going to say, "Oh, well, you know, we needed more out of Lowry."
No.
Lowry, Appleton, and Morgan Barron was your best line. The third line was when it was Barron, right? Because obviously previously without the injuries, it wasn't Barron, it was Niederreiter, right?
Yeah.
So regardless if it was Niederreiter or Barron, Lowry and Appleton, I thought Appleton was great in this series. And again, Appleton's not a guy that you're going to expect a ton of offense out of. You want him to kill penalties. You want him to be aggressive in the forecheck. You want that energy. And to Drew's point, I mean, when you don't see that from your top 6 guys, like Pierre-Luc Dubois, like Kyle Connor, when you don't see that those guys have it early in the game, there's a ripple down effect, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I mean, how many people thought, and you know, we'll hear it in the chat, how many people thought when the Jets gave up that early first goal, I don't think a lot of people had a good outlook on tonight's game.
No, they didn't, and nor should they, because they saw a team that wasn't prepared to play, that wasn't ready to play. And I don't think that Adam Lowry wasn't ready to play, or Mason Appleton, but again, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Kyle Connor. Kyle Connor is a big question. Again, if you're not re-signing Connor Hellebuck, or if he's not interested in re-signing here, then you're probably trading him. And then, what are you doing with Kyle Connor? I mean,
you can't trade everybody, Drew. You actually do need some players to play the game.
Well, I mean, or do you go full scorched earth rebuild?
Drew, and then you literally can't trade. You can't trade every single asset that you have.
I know you can't trade
scorched earth. I think Drew would be trading Dubois, Scheifele, and Wheeler. That would be scorched earth.
Well, I don't think you have to trade Wheeler right now. I don't think Wheeler is the problem, but
or Scheifele and Dubois, right? Like I'm pretty sure trading your top 2 centers would qualify as scorched earth.
That would sure. I can live with that. I can live with your assessment there. But I mean, again, you're between the rock and so Dubois, I think, is gone. I mean, I just don't see any way that he's coming back. It doesn't make any sense. He has never expressed any real interest in being here. Everything points to him going to Montreal. The curious question is there even a trade out there for him? Because everyone thinks he's going to Montreal as a free agent. Who's giving on this? You got to hope that there's a team who thinks, who's happy to take him for 1 year because he's going to put them over the top or something, for that in that 1 year. Yeah. But, if Mark Scheifele, and again, there was a lot of chatter that he might not even be back for this season. If Mark Scheifele doesn't express any interest in re-signing, well, you got to trade him as well. So you might go scorched earth. Even if you don't want to go scorched earth, because the players are so close to having that leverage. And this is part of the problem and part of the issue, as I was saying, about roster mismanagement, because it shouldn't ever sort of get to this point in time where you're at the mercy of your players in determining your future actions. And that is, I think, part of the problem and part of the issue that we're experiencing. And part of the problem with Kevin Cheveldayoff as general manager, he never did anything to deal with the Dustin Byfuglien departure. I mean, in the immediacy of it occurring, I can understand why you might not necessarily be able to pivot so quickly. It happened. It was a surprise. It should never be a surprise, but let's forget about that and let's give him the time and say, yeah, okay, fine, it was a surprise. But how are you going to deal with it? What are you going to do to solve that problem? What are you going to deal? How are you going to adjust to this unexpected occurrence? And the Jets have never adjusted to any unexpected occurrences, and they've never done anything that's got the word proactive at the forefront of it. And you can't always be reactive. I know that you always want to be cautious, and I understand that you want to be conservative and you don't want to act too rashly or act too quickly. But at some point in time, somebody needs to realize, hey, trade Jack Roslovic and get Mark Stone and see what that does to your team, rather than be conservative and holding on to see what Jack Roslovic would actually materialize into. these are the things. It's like you're afraid to pull,
I feel like this is a bar mitzvah, by the way, like with all this money that's coming in. I'm loving it.
And we thank everybody for this. This is very generous of all you good folks who are joining us at almost 1 a.m. Almost 400 of you joining us here on the Illegal Curve post-game show. We remind you, we don't go anywhere. The post-game shows might end. The Saturday shows go strong, so we'll be back Saturday morning, 9 a.m. for the Illegal
Wait, aren't we doing a Moose post-game show now?
I don't know. We can talk about that after.
By the way, I don't know if you guys noticed that Ali K is in the chat. She was in the chat earlier, so hopefully Ali K is still watching. But great to see Ali K because we kind of lost touch with her a little bit.
For those of you who don't know, Ali K is from Arizona. And
well, if you don't know, you should have read the little site called LegalCurve.com where we called about the incredible odyssey. I may have called it journey of Ali K from Milan to Minsk and from Phoenix to Winnipeg.
She came to Winnipeg years ago for the Jets
for the first game.
For the first game, she was a Remus is even there's Remus is in the chat and he's acknowledging Ali K as well. That's how she goes way back with us.
In fact, for the record, but Drew, to get the story straight, Ali K came to Winnipeg because she was in Arizona. She lived in Arizona. She's not from Arizona originally, though. Just
she's from Michigan originally.
Yeah, she's originally from Michigan. Yeah. But she was a big supporter of Winnipeg getting a hockey team back. And so she actually flew to Winnipeg for the first game without a ticket. She had lunch with us at a tavern, if I recall correctly. And then we were going to the game, and we told her, Ali, just try and go to the will call, and see if you can get yourself a ticket.
She did while we were broadcasting from there.
That's right.
She was standing in line.
Right, and she stood in line, and she got a ticket into the game. So Ali K was a legend, flew from Phoenix, got into game 1. She was there from the beginning. Huge IC supporter. So thank you, Ali K, for joining us tonight.
Ali K.
There you go. Exactly right. But I mean, going back to what I was saying, again, there just needs to be there needs to be a change for this Winnipeg Jets team. Unfortunately, everybody and everything in life has a shelf life. And it doesn't mean that Kevin
except for these three bozos.
By the way, Drew, you're fired.
Show.
Thank you. Kevin.
Drew, we got some bad news after the show.
That's fine. You can give me the bad news after the show all you want. Doesn't mean that Kevin Cheveldayoff can't work for True North. It just means that somebody else needs to be the one making the decisions.
Oh, boys, I forgot to tell you. I've actually, Zinger called me. I'm now the GM of the Winnipeg Jets.
Congratulations, Dave. And we're all in trouble is what it basically boils down to.
No, you wouldn't be in trouble. Just everyone would be like, why are all the Moose players playing for the Jets? And all the Jets have been sent down to the Moose.
Well, there's just obviously shortcomings, when it comes to roster management and talent evaluation. Now, that's not solely on him. That's also on some of the pro scouts for the Winnipeg Jets. But, they haven't been able to unearth players to really develop. They're trying to get these guys who are fringe AHL, NHL guys, and they're trying their hardest to turn them into NHL regulars. And they might be NHL regulars on the Jets. But ask yourself, how many of the guys that are in the bottom of the Jets lineup in today's game or in this series were going to play for Vegas? Were any of them? And this isn't me trying to be insulting to Kevin Stenlund or Carson Kuhlman or Saku Manalainen, but or Alex Johnson or Axel Johnson Fialbi, in game 5 and game 4. But those guys wouldn't make Vegas's lineup. They wouldn't crack Vegas's lineup. I'm not entirely sure Mason Appleton would crack Vegas's lineup. He probably would, but it's a question. It's, again, the Jets are not developing players and, to the same level that so many of their opponents are. And it's part of the problem when you see when it comes to the performance on the ice. These guys that are strictly heart and soul without the requisite talent to be NHL players only can get you so far. And that usually is maybe the first round of the playoffs.
Sure. And I think, we would all agree that the bottom 6 is a lot better. The fourth line specifically is a lot better than it was when, the Trevor Lewis, Nate Thompson regime. You know what I mean? Right? Like, sure. And Matty Perreault was a guy that's always pointed to as that guy who could play on the second line, third line, fourth line. But you're right, Drew. Like I said earlier, bringing in Nito Niederreiter and Vladislav Nemesnikov was effective at the time. But when you're going up against a Golden Knights team, who you're right. And we talked about this. The Jets had the big advantage in goal, even though, I would argue Brossoit outplayed Hellebuck in this series, which is kind of weird to say. because nobody really ever outplays Hellebuck unless it's, Andre Vasilevsky or UC Saros, or I guess James Reimer or Karel Vejmelka. Obviously, I'm joking, but they just weren't deep enough to overcome, like we said, the injuries to Mark Scheifele and Josh Morrissey. And I've said it, many times before. And I'm not a fantasy GM. I'm not an NHL general manager or assistant general manager, and I never will be. But I do know that the Jets needed a shutdown defenseman. And look at this series, right? Like, you don't think Matthias Ekholm would have helped the Jets? You don't think Vladislav Gavrikov would have helped the Jets, or a guy that we talked about several months back, like, who obviously was never going to be traded, but a guy like Mackenzie Weegar? Like, I think the Jets defense is good, but it's just it's like average to slightly above average. And then you look at the forward group, and then you take out Mark Scheifele, and then all of a sudden, it looks like a very average group of forwards after, as we talked about, after Pierre-Luc Dubois, after Kyle Connor, after Blake Wheeler, right? So, yeah, the Jets probably should have been more proactive early in the season, Drew, to your point. Bringing in Carson Kuhlman and Axel Janssen-Fjällby was okay, bringing those guys off of waivers. But as we talked about, you also lost Mikey Esimont, who, if he was still a member of the Jets, most likely he would have played all the games down the stretch. I don't think he was coming out of the lineup at all, right? So there's a lot of decisions that have to be made. And to your point, Drew, about the vision of the Jets organization, they have to determine, is this team going to do a bigger rebuild, a retool? And then you decide, after you've answered that question, then you decide what you're going to do with some of your core players. But there's no way that you can run it back this year, but especially in a year in which you're trying to sell season tickets. Like you said, the Jets, for the first time since they've been back, don't have 13,000 season ticket holders anymore. So they need to make sure that they get it right this summer.
And Ezzy, not only do they not have 13,000 season ticket holders, but all those folks that, remember, they were trumpeting, we've got all these people on the wait list. We got all these people on the wait list. I believe the wait list is gone. So, I mean,
nothing believe about it. The wait list is gone.
So what I'm saying is that you're now trying to repopulate things. And part of, look, we're not here to shit on the Jets. Like, that's not what the purpose is. We don't do this show just to denigrate them. I think it's part of what they need to do is they need to open their ears and listen to their fans, and and listen to what people have to say about this organization. And sure, it's interesting to be doing an autopsy show, moments after the season ended, and usually you have some sobering second thoughts. But I mean, look, the reality is, when your head coach goes off the way he did, and we haven't even heard Rick Bowness live, but I mean, if you look, I briefly looked on Twitter, and Twitter is a Twitter right now on the way that Rick Bowness has gone, after his team this year, this evening. So, I mean, to me, this is it's definitely an interesting storyline, and it's something we've obviously spent the majority of this evening talking about, is, the direction of this organization. And I'm
still waiting to break down the first Chandler Stephenson.
Well, we're going to do that right after we come back from break, Ezzy, but don't worry. So we'll get into the Betway game recap, because we got to thank our friends from Betway. And as Drew has said, folks, and I appreciate that, it's been 400 strong almost the entirety of the show. We ain't going anywhere. We got plenty of, first of all, Jets content coming your way. We've got Moose content, some Ice content, because there's Moose and Jets and the Ice are still in their game ones, are both tomorrow here in Winnipeg. We're going to give away tickets to the Moose game. I've got tickets. So if you want tickets, hit me up with Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. How about that? Leave it as a teaser. Exactly. Stay tuned. More of the Illegal Curve post-game show coming up after the break. This has been the Betway game recap. It's brought to you by Betway. It's simple, fun, and safe to bet with Betway. So head on over to Betway and bet your way. Must be 19 years or older to play. Please play responsibly. More of the Jets and the Golden Knights analysis. More on the Jets post-mortem. Where does the team go from here? Don't go anywhere. It's 1 a.m. Friday morning. We're live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms. Smash the like button as we head to break.
Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the biggest acts and all the up-and-comers. They've all made their mark at Rumors Comedy Club, North America's longest-running independent comedy club. Rumors has kept Winnipeg laughing for over 25 years. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party, even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
He winds up. Oh! Whoa! Looks like Ezzy took that one right in the choppers.
A blistering fast puck hurts like HE double hockey sticks. That's why I let the pros at Linden Market Dental Center turn my yow into
wow.
Get your brilliant smile back with state-of-the-art restorative and cosmetic dentistry from real pros.
And remember, always wear a mouth guard.
Now that's solid on ice advice. Learn more at lindenmarketdentalcenter.com. Creating smiles for life.
Whoa, Ezzy, everything okay? You look stressed.
Of course I'm stressed. We're moving, the house is upside down, the kids failed miserably at packing the fine china, and my life is in chaos. Chaos!
Yes, that does sound like a problem.
What am I going to do?
Ezzy, relax. Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage is the answer. With 60 years of experience in moving Manitobans and a track record of exemplary customer service, one call to Rolly's and your stress is gone. No job is too big or too small. Just visit Rollies.com and they will take it from there.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you, Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage, online at Rollies.com.
Dave, my man, why are you in the car already? It's hours until game time.
Drew, it's because I'm stressed out right now, driving around downtown Winnipeg, looking for a parking spot, and I'm not finding one. I've lost Ginsburg. I don't even know where that guy is right now.
Dave, haven't I taught you anything? Do what I do. Pre-book your entire month's worth of game day parking with the Grid Park app. It's super easy to use and saves me both time and stress.
Well, Drew, I'm not independently wealthy like you are. So I'm sorry that I don't have millions of dollars to pre-book my parking month in advance. What's that going to cost you? $25?
How about $5?
Come on, $5? No way.
$5. I'm not telling you a lie. And our listeners can get a free park with the new special promo code Illegal Curve. Guess what? There's more.
Come on, there's more, Drew. You're lying to me. What more could there be?
Grid Park now has underground parking, so my car can stay warm during the game.
So wait a second. All the driving around I do, looking for parking, minus 40, you're telling me I could be toasty warm in a car after the hockey game?
That's exactly what I'm telling you. Underground parking. Just download the Grid Park app. That's GRYD Park and use the code Illegal Curve. All one word. You'll park for free your first time.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
For 3 generations and over 80 years, Tough Duck has been making apparel that works and plays as hard as the people who wear it. From jackets to work boots and everything in between, Tough Duck's clothing can handle the harshest environments, even the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Work to live, live to play. Visit toughduck.com. Shortly after 1 in the morning, welcome back to the Illegal Curve post-game show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg for the final time in the wee hours of the morning for this 2022-23 Winnipeg Jets season. Of course, Saturday mornings, Illegal Curve Hockey Show will continue to go strong, so you'll be joining us each and every Saturday at 9 a.m. We might pop up with some extra shows here or there, depending on how things shake out for the Winnipeg Jets and when the news warrants it happening. And of course, we'll have extensive draft coverage, including live coverage of the round 1 of the NHL draft, whatever day that is, sometime in June. I don't have a calendar handy and I'm not about to look at one, but stay tuned is what it basically boils down to. We are not going anywhere. There was another part of Rick Bonus's post-game quotes that I know that are certainly
well, Ezzy and I just watched it, and let me tell you, dear Lord.
Yeah, he's heated. And the part that jumps out at me the most is, so we heard I reiterated the comments about no pushback. It's the same crap we saw in February. This is the part that I hadn't seen before. As soon as we were challenging for first place and teams were coming after us, we had no pushback. And what that means is, as soon as the games got a little bit harder, and as soon as teams didn't take us for granted, we had no ability to elevate our game.
What he's saying is the Jets need a spine. They need intestinal fortitude.
Exactly.
Right, Drew? And you know that, right?
Exactly.
And you're right. So, good on Bones. Like, Dave and I watched it during the commercial break, because obviously those comments, his comments were while we were on live to start the post-game show, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, I think anybody watching that game would not only be disappointed in how the first period started, but how the second period started and how there was no real pushback until late in the third period.
When it didn't matter.
And the thing is, like, I think if you look at how the Jets were playing in January, February, March, and then obviously the last 8 or 9 games of the season, once Rick Bowness moved Mark Scheifele to the wing, and then you had Vladislav Namestnikov in the middle, clearly the Jets went on a run. Hellebuck was really good. But I think, what happened in January, February, they weren't able to, sweep that under the rug. I think that kind of reared its ugly head here in this final. Pardon me, in this playoff round, in this first round. So it's really disappointing. And then you throw in the fact that the Jets were really dominant in the first game, and they couldn't get anywhere close to that, right? Like, they were down 3 goals in game 3, and then obviously, they forced overtime. But, the whole key is you don't get down 2 goals. You don't get down 3 goals, right? And they did that again tonight. So you can't always play from behind, and you can't always depend on Connor Hellebuck making 35 or 40 saves.
Exactly right. I mean, look, Laurent Brossoit, the numbers look like Laurent Brossoit outplayed Connor Hellebuck, but the Golden Knights make it so easy on Laurent Brossoit. I mean, did you see the rebounds he was giving up in tonight's game?
Yeah.
I mean, he was giving up rebounds that weren't, beyond juicy. But what happened?
I remember those rebounds when he was the backup of the Jets. I mean,
right.
that's always been really the knock on Brossoit, is that his rebound control and the fact that he'll give up the odd, quote unquote easy goal.
The difference is you couldn't get to the middle, Drew, and I think that's what you're getting at. Is exactly the Golden Knights? I had a picture, from Colby Spence, our crack photographer, and welcome back, Alex James. I want to welcome Alex back. He's had to deal with some health issues, but Alex is back and feeling good again, and he was able to shoot the Jets game for us. Game 4, I believe he shot, and maybe game 4, and he also is shooting tomorrow's Moose game. So welcome back to Alex, and to, of course, Colby's there every game. So always say thanks to Colby for his phenomenal photography that has made our website and our Instagram so much better with his contributions. But no, what I was going to say is, like, it was interesting because I saw a picture of Kyle Connor that Colby took, and it was Kyle Connor, and it was 4 Golden Knights, and they were completely protecting the house. And all I could think about is, this is the reason the Jets have nobody who is willing to try and penetrate the house. And they have nobody who's willing to go to the tough areas. And there were so many instances watching these games where the Jets are kept to the perimeter. And it's all that Bruce Cassidy has talked about. You don't let them get to the middle. Right. They kept them to the outside. And you're 100% right, Drew.
It's like that some of these rebounds, second round series all over again, right?
It is. Again, like I said, with the absence of 1, Mark Scheifele, and 2, one of your top 2 defensemen. And so it's deja vu, as he, unfortunately for Jets fans, all over again. But yeah, I mean, Bruce Cassidy talked about it. We'll give them the perimeter all day and we talked about it with Jesse Granger on Saturday's show. They're going to give the Jets the perimeter. They're not going to let them get to the house, and that's what they prevented. And as a result, the Jets really just didn't have those opportunities to bang home those rebounds. And really, when they were kind of getting to those spots, it was too little, too late.
Yeah, that's just it. I mean, it's just, they aren't able to. I don't know if it's a desire thing or if it's just it's an unwillingness to do it, but whatever it is, it obviously isn't something that can be easily rectified. I mean, a coach doesn't do what Rick Bowness did tonight if he has any faith at all in these players.
He's also not trying to fire him up for next year.
No,
it's like, I'm not going to send a message to them in the last game of the season.
Like, he doesn't do what he did. If he believes in this group 1 iota as currently constructed, you just at the end of the season, usually what do you hear from coaches? You hear platitudes. You hear we ran out of gas.
We fought hard, but we just we lost to a good team over there.
Right, we lost to a good team.
Well, and Drew, what'll be curious what will be curious. So sorry to interrupt you, but just quickly, what'll be curious will be, the sobering second thoughts and what his mindset and his comments will be. I don't know.
He's already spoken the truth.
No, I understand that. I know.
I
there's
agree
no-
with Drew,
there's-
Dave.
there's-
I realize there will be sober second thought, but you can't
No,
go
I
back
understand.
and be like,
You can't
oh,
put
you know
the
what? I
genie
didn't
back in
really
the
mean
bottle.
that.
Yeah, no, I know. I agree. You like again, he's gonna have to stand behind it because he said it. He's just going to, how it'll be. I guess what I'm saying is to see the future. It'll be curious to see how he frames the past.
Yeah, sure, and that and it's going to be interesting.
That was some good one right there.
That was really well done.
Yeah.
What does Kevin Shoveldayoff?
1:11 in the morning too, and I'm coming up with that stuff.
That might be when you hit your peak, actually, Dave.
I'm out. I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm done.
But what does Kevin Shoveldayoff say? Because I mean, look, you just can't brush this under the rug like they tried to do last offseason. And maybe you could try and get away with it for one offseason, but you can't do it again. You can't have another coach, well-respected coach. Paul Maurice, is a well-respected head coach. He's won a lot of games in this league. He's lost more.
Yeah, I was like, he's lost a lot of games.
But he's been around because he's well-respected. He quit on this team. Rick Bowness didn't quit on this team, but he basically torched this team and said it's unfixable as currently constructed. That's 2 coaches in a row now. You can't just brush that off as a minor coincidence. There's smoke, there's fire. There's no
And
doubt
not just
about
about
it.
Dave's head.
And not just about
and
Dave's
that's
head.
why there's a strong case to be made that there should be, just like there was a year ago,
Right.
that there should be significant moves on this roster. And none of us know. The 3 of us don't know. Nobody in the chat, nobody in Winnipeg sports media knows, what moves are to come. But I think we'll be surprised if at least 1 or 2 of these pieces aren't moved because of the fact of how disappointing this season ended. I said it before. I really do think this season is more disappointing because of the fact that you were in first place or second place in the Central, and then you fell all the way down. You never fell out of a wild card spot, but you were close to falling out of a playoff spot. And also just the way that, again, Mark Scheifele gets injured again. Nikolai Ehlers misses 4 out of the 5 games. Josh Morrissey, your best defenseman, he misses the majority of the series, right? It's just there needs to be significant changes, not just, bringing in, some depth players. We're talking about moving some core pieces and potentially moving on from Kevin Shoveldayoff. I'm not advocating for him to be replaced. I'm just saying, I think you have to, at the very least, be considering a new general manager. It doesn't matter what I think. It's what Mark Chipman and, ownership thinks. That's who makes the decision. Right. So they're not going to listen to me. They're the ones that have to decide, okay, Chevy, thank you for your 12 years of service, but we're going to have to go in a different direction. They're the ones that are going to have to make that call.
And they have to make that call, that call deserves to be made from the hockey side of things, but it also needs to be made from the business side of things, because you can't continue, no matter how much you value the loyalty that you have for Kevin Shoveldayoff, and that's fine, but the business side of things demands a change. If I'm running a restaurant and I have a head chef that used to be a great head chef,
You're a restaurant, Drew?
But his food is getting gradually worse by the year until nobody's coming to the restaurant anymore because the food sucks, you got to make the change. You might not want to make the change. You might love that head chef. You might be but you're running a business. And if you want to stay in business, you have to make the change. You have to make some hard decisions. And that's where the Winnipeg Jets are. You might, if you injected him with truth serum, would Mark Chipman want to get rid of Kevin Shoveldayoff? No, probably not. He seems very loyal to him. Does he need to do it? Yes, he does. It's no longer a case of Kevin Shoveldayoff might be the right guy for the job. It's just the time has come. And if you want to have that impact on the business side of things, you also need to make that change. Tough Duck hardest hitting comment for tonight's post-game show, Mr. Ginsburg, 1:15 in the morning. So many of you joining us. If you haven't already done so, smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast, rate us, review us, leave us some feedback. We will be back Saturday morning, 9 a.m. with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. It's going to be a very busy show. We don't know when locker cleanout day is just yet. It seems like it might be on Saturday, but as soon as we know, we'll let you know. And if it's Saturday while we're live, it's going to be a very entertaining Illegal Curve hockey show. Mr. Ginsburg, Tough Duck hardest hitting comment. We've done 80. This will be the 87th giveaway of the season. So who's winning it tonight?
Yeah, and just before I announce who's going to win it, thanks to everybody all year long for joining us on the post-game show. I think I speak for Drew and Dave. I mean, we have such a loyal, so many loyal members of IC Nation joining us, even after losses. So the final Tough Duck hardest hitting comment is going to go to one of the best names out there. We're going to give it to Poopy Pants. Back at 12:57, Bones should have done the mic drop when he walked away from the post-game presser. He's not going to come back. This team may have broke him. I don't know if he's not going to be back. Also, because Poopy Pants is just showing off a great catch there. So love that avatar as well. So Poopy Pants, send me an email, Ezra@illegalcurve.com. People used to call me Poopy Pants, by the way, but Ezra@illegalcurve.com.
Last week.
Poopy Pants, and send me your mailing address, and Tough Duck will ship out a trucker hat. So your Poopy Pants is going to get the last trucker hat of the season.
Wonderful. Congratulations to Poopy Pants for joining us and winning the Tough
Poopy
Duck.
Pants also donated some money to IC, so thank you, Poopy Pants.
Oh, Poopy Pants.
Nice.
He's in our.
So Poopy Pants, for the record, did not win because he donated the money, but that didn't hurt him from winning.
That did not. Dave M., you got some tickets to give away. How do you want to do that?
I do indeed have some tickets. I know Steve B in the chat has been emailing me for some tickets, so I'm going to hit Steve B with some couple of tickets, but I've also got more to give away. So if you'd like to go to the Manitoba Moose Game 1 tomorrow against the Milwaukee Admirals, then send me an email, dave@illegalcurve.com, or slide into my DMs at ICDave, or you go to the Sun. So tomorrow's game is a 7 o'clock start. Sunday, Drew, I believe, is a 2 o'clock start or 3 o'clock. I'm not 100% certain.
Okay.
I'll
believe
check
it's
right
2,
now.
Dave.
2 p.m. start on Sunday. Game 2, Milwaukee Admirals, Manitoba Moose, rematch of last year. So it should be a good one. And of course, the Ice are playing tomorrow. So there's going to be a lot of good hockey still to come in this city. And illegalcurve.com is going to be your source for all of that. But yeah, if you want to go to those games, send me an email. I might have, right now I've got the 4 tickets. And for the record, if you don't get the tickets, there's an offer for anyone who goes on the website. Check the Winnipeg Jets morning papers. Whenever the note is about the Moose, there's a link that you can click and you can get tickets for I think it's like $18 a ticket for pretty good seats. So pretty good deal. If you don't get the free tickets, you can still go for a pretty minimal cost and you'll be able to go to the game for playoffs. And it should be a lot of fun. And the Moose, I'm told, are encouraging folks to wear white. So if you want to bring some white out to the Moose, you are more than welcome to do so as well.
I thought everyone was getting like a replica Dave mask. I thought it was going to be a Dave out is what I thought it was going to be at the Moose game on this coming weekend.
No, but I can tell you right now, Dave might be out when suddenly the press box is filled with all these people who haven't been there all season long. I'm like, boys, no, I don't think
they
so.
Have to come kiss the ring if they're going to start showing
no,
up.
No, I'm just going to tell Perry. I'm going to tell Perry, the security guard, not to allow them in.
There you go. Very reasonable of you. Dave M runs that press box. You're gonna use it like a velvet rope and everything else. And you're
true.
in. You're cool. You gone. Make sure that you got security around you at all times. There, Mr. Manuk. Want to say thank you to all the sponsors of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, the Illegal Curve Post Game Show, and of course illegalcurve.com, and our newest sponsor, the Rady JCC Sports Dinner, coming up June 19th of this year, featuring Chris Chelios, Ed Belfour, and Jeremy Roenick. We're pleased to be partnering with the Rady JCC on this great event, raising money for some of the great programming that the Rady JCC does for the community. Those 3 Chicago Blackhawk legends all on one stage. So be sure to check that out. For more information, radyjcc.com. We'll have more information here throughout the Saturday shows moving forward as well. But a big thank you to them. And we're going to be there, of course, for that great event coming up on June the 19th. Want to say a big thank you to our sponsors. I guess actually one more thing. Seagram's shot of the game. Who's getting it? Which goal?
I got it.
As he's getting into Seagram's shot of the game.
Boys, you got to go out strong. Go hard or go home, right?
There you go. Ezzy, shoot it back. Fireball tastes like heaven, burns like hell. Ezzy getting the Seagram's shot.
Boys, I've always been a team player in the 14 years we've been doing this show. So, I mean, if it means I take a fireball shot at 20 after 1 in the morning after the Jets lose, I'll do it.
There you go. Mr.
Ginsburg. That tastes good. I'm going to sleep well tonight. I'm going to sleep like a baby.
Mr. Ginsburg gets the Seagram.
Dave, I'm sleeping on your floor tonight.
You know I have extra bedrooms, right, Ez?
You're letting him upstairs, Dave? You don't let him upstairs ever.
Oh, that
Seagram's
fireball
shot of the
goes down
game
nice. Woo.
goes to Ezzy. A big thanks to our
Yum,
friends
yum,
at
yum.
Seagram's for their sponsorship of the Illegal Curve post.
By the way, Drew, the answer to your question is nobody deserves this. The only people who deserve a shot at the game are all the people in the chat
Yeah.
who deserve. This is like when they picked the 3 stars and they went the fans. I think was that 2015.
Anaheim, yeah.
Yeah, the Anaheim series. So I think when they pick the fans, well, we're going to pick all of you because win, lose, or I see Drew, you folks have joined us night in and night out. Doesn't matter whether it's a 7:00 start or a 9:20 start. We always appreciate the fact that you guys and girls join us each and every game. As he said it already, but I'll reiterate the point because it's one I agree with wholeheartedly. We appreciate every time you guys join us. The chat makes the show, and we've spent 12 years on radio, and it doesn't hold a candle to how much more we get from being on this format and in this medium, being able to speak and interact with you on a much more personal manner than when we ever did when we were on terrestrial radio. So thanks again for joining us for our second full season. I think it's 2.5 years now. We've been doing this format of the show, of the post-game show. But without your support, it wouldn't be worth doing. And because of what you guys do and what you bring each and every time we do this show, we love it and we have a great time. So thanks again. And it makes it worth it, makes staying up worth it. And we'll continue to do it next year and every year after.
Exactly right. We want to say a big thank you because they also make it possible. Our sponsors who make this show possible, our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Linden Market Dental Center, Zappia Group Realty, Betway, Tough Duck, Boston Pizza, Seagram's, Rolly's Transfer, Grid Park, and The Keg. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. The first post-game show started back in October. It's now the end of April. For the 87th time this season, we thank you for joining us for the Illegal Curve post-game show. We remind you to join us Saturday morning, 9 a.m., the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We'll be back with much more on the end of the regular Jets season. We'll be covering the end of the season in its entirety. So that'll happen every Saturday moving forward. Even if there's no post-game shows, the Saturday show continues strong. We thank you all for joining us. If you haven't already done so, smash the like button. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast, leave us feedback here, there, and everywhere, because we always like to know what you guys think of our fine programming. For Dave Minuk in the top corner, for Ezra Ginsburg in the bottom middle, I'm your host, Drew Mindell. Thanks for joining us. Until Saturday at 9 a.m., we wish you good night and good luck, and thanks for watching the Illegal Curve postgame show.